Another delay. Starship's fifth test flight, set to try a tricky catch maneuver with its huge rocket booster, is delayed again. But this isn't just a few days or weeks. This time we're looking at several months. We might not see Starship in the air until as late as the end of November. And this triggered the most aggressive move by Musk and SpaceX in history. So what's the real reason behind this holdup? And what's really happening? Let's find out in today's episode. In the latest update, SpaceX expressed deep frustration. Unfortunately, we continue to be stuck in a reality where it takes longer to do the government paperwork to license a rocket launch than it does to design and build the actual hardware, they emphasized. This should never happen and directly threatens America's position as the leader in space. This statement clearly highlights that the major obstacle for the upcoming launch isn't technical, but instead revolves around the licensing process. Musk had already announced that the hardware for Starship's fifth test flight was ready as of early August. He wasn't lying. We can see that SpaceX hasn't conducted significant activity with Ship 30 recently, while Booster 12 remains stored in Megabay 1, with its hot stage ring already installed. Elon Musk also voiced his frustration on X. "We will never get humanity to Mars if this continues." It's a public move, expressing his displeasure with the delays caused by the FAA, saying it's slowing down their progress, which it is. His statement coincided with a House committee hearing. The FAA faced scrutiny over implementing new rules for launch and landing licenses, known as Part 450th. Part 450, introduced 3 years ago, was meant to streamline the licensing process to keep up with the fast-paced growth of the commercial space industry. But the reality turned out to be the opposite. Currently, most of SpaceX's launches, which use the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets, are still approved under the old regulations. However, since Starship is a brand new rocket, it must follow the new rules from the start. During the House Committee on Science, Space and Technology hearing, Representative Mike Garcia, a Republican from Texas, sharply criticized Kelvin Coleman, FAA's Deputy Associate Administrator for Commercial Space Transportation, over the delays in issuing a license for Starship's Integrated Flight Test 5. Garcia stated, "I think you've got the wrong paradigm right now." SpaceX also made it clear this delay was not based on a new safety concern, but instead driven by superfluous environmental analysis. For Flight 5 specifically, SpaceX wants to test the recovery of the Super Heavy boosters, similar to how they've successfully retrieved Falcon 9's first stages. To do this, the boosters will be caught mid-air by chopsticks mounted on the launch tower. SpaceX admits this is a first-of-its-kind operation in rocket history, and that its understandable regulators might need more time. The problem, however, is that instead of focusing on public safety and environmental protection, the licensing process has been repeatedly derailed by issues ranging from the absurd to the outright ridiculous. For Flight 5, when the booster returns to the launch tower, it'll create a small sonic boom and slightly change where the hot staging ring falls into the ocean. According to research, the overall impact of the sonic boom on nearby communities is just a brief noise, similar to a thunderclap. The FAA, after consulting with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, concluded that the sonic boom from the Super Heavy landing won't have any significant environmental impact. While animals exposed to the sonic boom might be startled for a moment, multiple studies have shown that sonic booms of varying intensities don't pose a harmful threat to wildlife. And here's the kicker. Despite all this documented evidence, FAA leadership has still approved an additional 60-day consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And that's the real issue. Even the smallest changes in the iterative process of rocket development trigger new interagency consultation. Current laws require the FAA to give other agencies 60 days to respond, no matter how minor the change is. If during this period any questions or concerns come up, the clock resets, which could lead to indefinite delays for SpaceX, a company known for its relentless innovation. I hate to say this, but if the current situation doesn't change, we're looking at Flight 5 happening no sooner than late November or possibly even early next year. And that's not even considering the fact that there are just too many regulatory agencies involved in the launch approval process, making it incredibly complicated and drawn out. As a result, during the House committee hearing, Kelvin Coleman faced some tough questions and sharp criticism from committee members and other witnesses. They argued that the FAA's approval process is stifling innovation because it's overly bureaucratic and time-consuming. In response, Coleman admitted that the new regulations still need fine-tuning. However, according to him, companies share some responsibility, as they often submit incomplete applications, require resubmission, or make changes that demand additional review. The FAA's explanation feels like a lot of dodging. Coleman even stated, "It does not require substantial changes. It's not a perfect rule. No rules are perfect. We're very open to input that the industry has. That said, it's not broken either." In other words, from the FAA's perspective, nothing's wrong at all. And the issue, according to them, isn't the regulations or how they're enforcing them. Instead, they shift the blame to SpaceX. The FAA's only advice? Companies, including SpaceX, just shouldn't change their licenses so often. Right, so just stop innovating and there won't be a problem. What a perfect recipe for losing the space race. The reality is, the FAA isn't built to handle rapid progress or frequent changes. This agency has been overseeing the same type of launch vehicles for decades, with minimal changes that come years apart. This creates a massive gap between how the FAA operates and the fast-paced innovation companies like SpaceX demand. Dan Murray, the executive director of operational safety at the FAA's Office of Commercial Space Transportation, revealed that SpaceX gets most of the FAA's resources, including 80% of the hundreds of hours of overtime his office puts in each month. It sounds like the FAA is going above and beyond for SpaceX, but in truth, they're spending an enormous amount of money, manpower, and time on unnecessary analysis. It's neither smart nor efficient. Come on, dumping clean water into the surrounding environment isn't going to cause negative effects. A sonic boom just gives wildlife a momentary scare, and the odds of a 9-meter-wide hot staging ring falling into the ocean and directly harming marine life are extremely slim. It's just math. It doesn't need 2 months to figure it out. Despite facing direct criticism from SpaceX and the space community, the FAA still insists that it has a good relationship with the company. We work very well with SpaceX. Meanwhile, Firefly Aerospace, through Brett Alexander, their chief revenue officer, also stated, "We have a long-standing positive relationship with the FAA's Space Transportation Office. No major concerns about the regulation itself or how it's being implemented." Similarly, Blue Origin chimed in with positive feedback. Lars Hoffman, Vice President of Government Sales at Blue Origin, commented on working with the FAA to obtain a launch license for the New Glenn rocket. "It's been a very productive and constructive relationship and dialogue. Wow. A company that hasn't flown any rockets applauds how easy it is to get a permit for flying rockets. Of course, when you're moving at a snail's pace, you're not going to notice any delays." To summarize, from the FAA's perspective, they've done nothing wrong. The regulations are not wrong. They have a great relationship with SpaceX, and if there's any issue, it's because SpaceX innovates too much. Everything's great. Besides, Flight 5 can't fly. In the middle of a fierce space race between global powers, the development and management of the U.S. space projects have become a major focus. This recent situation has sparked deep concerns among many members of Congress. You know, SpaceX plays a crucial role in numerous NASA space exploration projects. Specifically, Starship in particular has been chosen as the Human Landing System, HLS, for the Artemis program, which aims to return American astronauts to the moon after over 50 years. However, the delays in securing launch permits for Starship are raising major alarms. At this rate, the planned landing in September 2026 is almost guaranteed to be delayed, which could severely impact the U.S.'s leadership position in space exploration. What's even more significant is that both Republican and Democratic members of Congress are showing strong determination to see the U.S. return to the moon before China can. The threat from China in the space race isn't just some far-fetched idea. Beijing has announced they want to send astronauts to the moon by 2030. This puts a lot of pressure on the U.S., as a nation that has already set foot on the moon could end up doing it slower than a latecomer to the race. Representative Brian Babin, who chaired the hearing, voiced his concerns bluntly. "I fear that at this rate, the Communist Party will launch taikonauts to the moon, while U.S. industry remains tethered to Earth with red tape. It's truly rare to see opposing sides come together on an issue like this. I hope this unity brings about some real change. If the FAA doesn't update its outdated practices from 50 years ago, the U.S. might end up exploring space with nothing more than antiquated science. The pace of modern scientific and technological advancements has clearly outstripped the regulatory frameworks designed to manage them. This could very well hinge on the outcome of the upcoming elections." Musk has pointedly said, "We'll never reach Mars if Kamala wins." Politics is always a sensitive topic, but all I hope is that, regardless of the outcome, space activities get the attention they deserve. Regulatory processes need to become less cumbersome to foster business growth, drive technological progress, and maintain our leadership position. When could Starship's fifth flight finally take off? Why the delay? And what's really happening behind the scenes between SpaceX and the FAA? According to Elon Musk, Starship and its Super Heavy booster have been ready for their next test flight since early August 2024. However, the launch isn't just dependent on SpaceX's technical readiness. The main hurdle standing in the way of Starship's fifth flight is the approval process from the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. According to Elon Musk, Starship and its Super Heavy booster have been ready for their next test flight since early August 2024. However, the launch isn't just dependent on SpaceX's technical readiness. The main hurdle standing in the way of Starship's fifth flight is the approval process from the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. Initially, the FAA had committed to making a decision on SpaceX's revised license by September 17, 2024. But recently, SpaceX was informed that this decision has been pushed back to November 22nd, and now even further to November 26, 2024. What's particularly frustrating is that the late November date mentioned by the FAA is only a no earlier than net estimate. This means that any new developments could delay the final approval even further. As a result, instead of launching by late August or early September as initially planned, Starship's fifth test flight now faces a potential delay until late November or possibly early December 2024. This is a significant delay, stretching over 3 months beyond the original timeline. It's just too long. This delay doesn't just impact the timeline for the Starship flight itself. It triggers a domino effect across all of SpaceX's operations. The company has had to reshuffle a host of activities, from personnel assignments and resource management to commitments with partners. So, what happened? Recently, SpaceX took a bold stand, releasing a statement that fiercely criticized external factors causing major disruptions to their launch schedule. In this statement, the company laid bare the details of their ongoing issues with the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and voiced their frustrations in no uncertain terms. Specifically, SpaceX hit back hard against false accusations surrounding Starship's water-cooled steel flame deflector system. The company made it clear that misleading reports had surfaced, falsely claiming that this system was either polluting the environment or operating outside regulatory standards. SpaceX emphasized that the flame deflector doesn't emit any pollutants into the surrounding environment. In fact, they stated that the system uses drinking water and is fully compliant, operating under the strict oversight of regulatory authorities. In case you didn't know, SpaceX has been the target of a wildly inaccurate accusation. A CNBC reporter, who clearly had zero technical understanding, claimed that the company was discharging polluted water with mercury levels nearly 1,000 times over the legal limit. This baseless claim sparked an unnecessary uproar in the community. Of course, the report was entirely false. I've broken down this issue in detail in another video. I'll drop the link in the comments if you want to check it out. In their latest update, SpaceX called out a small but vocal minority of detractors trying to game the regulatory system to obstruct and delay the development of Starship. This statement pointed directly at the self-proclaimed Carrizo Come Crudo tribe of South Texas. The group claims they are protecting their sacred sites and pushing for environmental justice. In reality, this group, along with representatives from a few organizations considered extreme, sent a letter to Representative Vicente Gonzalez and the FAA. The letter stated, "The current review and public participation process carried out by the FAA is inadequate and hinders engagement from our community members directly impacted by SpaceX's operations. The FAA's public participation process does not give enough opportunity for our low-income, marginalized, largely Spanish, English bilingual, and primarily people of color and indigenous community to participate and give public comments on the ongoing damages by SpaceX in the Cameron County region." However, it seems that some of the claims in this letter may have been exaggerated or distorted to create unnecessary pressure on SpaceX's development process. They argue that SpaceX's launches and test activities could negatively impact local wildlife, including birds and marine species. Additionally, they've raised concerns about rocket emissions and noise, claiming these could affect air quality and disturb the local community. But let me tell you this, they're just a small group of individuals who've come together and declared themselves a tribe or organization. In reality, this group has no official legal standing and isn't recognized by any government. Still, to their credit, this small group has proven surprisingly effective at causing disruptions. For instance, they managed to delay and even cancel parts of the Rio Grande LNG project, a critical liquefied natural gas (LNG) export terminal. Similarly, the Innova LNG project was scrapped after facing fierce opposition from this group and their allies. Their strategy seems to revolve around making their voice appear larger than it is, using media, social platforms, and legal loopholes to amplify their concerns. In response to these accusations, SpaceX has issued a strong and detailed rebuttal. The company made it clear that they've taken all necessary measures to minimize environmental impact. They have comprehensive plans in place to safeguard the environment and are working closely with reputable conservation organizations. SpaceX has substantial evidence and scientific data to prove that the environmental environmental impact of Starship-related activities is well within permissible limits and entirely manageable. But here's the thing. There's a minor adjustment in the landing position of the hot staging ring. SpaceX has firmly stated that this change doesn't increase any potential impact on marine life. Yet, FAA leadership decided to initiate a 60-day consultation with NOAA Fisheries. Here's the kicker. The mechanism behind these consultations allows for any new questions raised during this period to reset the 60-day countdown, potentially leading to indefinite delays. SpaceX argues that this single issue could unnecessarily delay the launch without addressing any reasonable environmental concern. In summary, there's no real risk to human safety or the environment here. SpaceX is facing delays not because they've violated any environmental or safety regulations. They're stuck in limbo due to the FAA's exhaustive relicensing procedures. As SpaceX themselves stated, "We find ourselves delayed for unreasonable and exasperating reasons." This marks the first time SpaceX has issued an official statement with such a high level of criticism. In response, the FAA released a thinly veiled statement. When a quality application is provided by an applicant at the start, a more expeditious approval is possible. This is a subtle jab at SpaceX, referencing a minor typo involving a misplaced comma in their application. The FAA argues that when companies make changes in their applications, their experts must recheck and verify the altered data and its potential effects on other aspects of the application. But really, if a single typo can cause such a significant delay in the approval process, something about this system needs to change. Excessive bureaucracy is becoming a major obstacle to progress in every field, aerospace included. What was initially designed to ensure safety and protect the public interest has turned into a tool of obstruction, a system that hinders technological advancement. The FAA, with its overly stringent and inflexible regulations, is unintentionally creating significant roadblocks, not just for SpaceX, but also for NASA striving to achieve their goals. Technology is advancing every single day, literally, and we're witnessing a growing gap between technological progress and the legal frameworks meant to regulate it. The world of rocket launches is no longer what it was in the 1960s. Without a comprehensive upgrade to the legal system to match today's cutting-edge realities, the U.S. space industry risks falling behind in the global race. At this rate, America will be heading to the Moon, Mars, and eventually the solar system with ancient technology like the SLS. SpaceX is currently in a critical phase of testing Starship, with its nearest goal being NASA's Artemis mission. With a tight schedule aiming for Artemis 3 in 2026, the pressure on SpaceX is immense. However, with the FAA standing in the way, a test launch of Starship 5-2, the likely variant for the Artemis 3 mission, seems almost impossible to happen this year. Beyond that, SpaceX still has several key milestones to hit. Aside from perfecting the booster catch, they need to continue developing and testing the Raptor 3 and Raptor 4 engine, as well as orbital refueling technology. It seems the FAA hasn't quite grasped SpaceX's iterative development approach. While the FAA faces no consequences for its sluggish inspections, time is everything for SpaceX. This situation is putting SpaceX in a tough spot. Publicly opposing U.S. government regulations could spark sensitive political debates. But they finally published a bold and direct statement criticizing the issue, a rare move in their history. It seems they've reached a breaking point. I hope all parties involved, including NASA and the political side, engage in honest discussions and make adjustments to the regulatory framework to achieve the shared goals of the U.S. and humanity. What about you? What do you think about this issue? Do you have any ideas for a solution? Share your thoughts below. All right. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth looks at the latest advancements in space technology. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.